a little bit later, no worries. There is always going to be a version of this talk on YouTube, so you can catch up. So we are so excited to welcome a new guest today. It's a very special show. We are in week 3 of a Bartók project, and it feels just really wonderful to explore this works and to do all these extra things. And before we have an actual presentation, I'd like to remind you that we have on Friday, we have a virtual open rehearsal where we delve into the pieces and really get to explore them. On Saturday, we have our concert, so you don't want to miss that. And this particular week, we are going to be playing the 3rd string quartet by Bartók, and as well as Romanian folk dances, which are very familiar to our guests today. But also it's a wonderful arrangement by our own Ross Snyder. This week was very generously sponsored by Grand Valley State University. We really thank them for supporting us and for their faith in our projects. And if you also are inclined, we would love to do more projects like this, and having your support would mean a lot. So if you would like to give us a support or donation, you can go to teslaquartet.com/support and support us for our vision, and maybe hopefully bringing you more of projects such as this. Lastly, before I turn it over to Ross to introduce our guest, you are welcome to ask us questions during the webinar. There are a couple of ways you can do it. You can either type it in the chat, or you can use Q&A section on Zoom. So type in your question, but be patient because it might take some time for us to actually get to it. And yeah, feel free to interact. We really want to make it as interactive as possible. So without further ado, I would like to turn it over to Ross, who has a great personal history with the Muzsikás and Takas Quartet. So maybe he can tell you all about how he was introduced to this wonderful guest we have today.
Thank you. So today we have Dániel Hamar, who is a co-founder of Muzsikás, which is a folk music group from Hungary. And I was my first interaction with this group actually was in 2003, when I was a senior in high school, and they came on tour with the Takas Quartet to my hometown in Pittsburgh and played a concert of Bartók string quartets, also with Muzsikás playing the traditional folk music that was related to, at least I think, the 4th string quartet of Bartók, which they played on that concert. And so this was one of my earliest introductions to this kind of music, and even at the time to Bartók's string quartets. And it was one of those concerts, one of those eye-opening, kind of life-changing concerts where you hear something for the very first time that strikes you in a completely new and revelatory way. So I've always been, since then, fascinated with how traditional music has inspired classically trained composers, and how the performing styles are different and things like that. So we're really fortunate and thankful that Dániel has agreed to come and speak with us today and share his stories about his time performing and learning all of this great folk music. So Dániel, thank you for joining us today. And I think Seraphine may have some questions to get us started. And I will put Dániel kind of up top so that we'll be able to see you. And I think I'll just probably even pin you so everybody can get a good look. So thank you very much. Seraphine, take it away.
Yeah,
Hello.
I just we had a little bit of a pre-conversation as we were preparing, and you were telling a little bit about how you transitioned from being a classically trained musician into someone interested in folk music, and I was wondering if you can share some of that story.
Why? First of all, hello everybody, and I have to apologize because of my English, because I was born in Hungary and I live in Hungary, and I learned my English in Hungary, so that's why I have a very strong Hungarian accent. So I started to play music when I was 6 years old, but I never wanted to be a professional musician, and I started classical piano and then classical contrabass in the grammar school where I was a pupil. There was a huge symphony orchestra, around 100 musicians, which is a great thing in a secondary school. There was 800 people at all, so 800 students, and there was a 100. It means that every eighth person was a member of the symphonic orchestra. So I played their classical music, and I started to study geophysics in a university when accidentally I met this music. It was not a normal at that time, because the music which started to be collected by Béla Bartók and Zoltán Kodály, or you pronounce Kodály, in the turn of the 20th century was absolutely not known by the urban people. And like Hungary is a very special territory of the Central Europe, and our history is very colorful. I have to say, in the last 1,000 years, we had to fight many times for our freedom. And the result is that the Hungarian society is divided in two big parts. One is the urban people, and the other is the rural village people. And the urban people, I mean the big cities and who live there, or even the smaller cities, it's very European. All the European culture movements had happened there in the same time when in Paris or in Vienna or in Rome or in London. And on the other hand, there was a rural culture which was completely unknown, completely. Just one example, Béla Bartók, who was not born in a big city, but it's a small city, but he was an urban boy, as the parents were teachers. And he graduated as a musician. He was already a fantastic pianist when the first time in his life he has heard a real traditional folk song. And it was so shocking for him that he immediately started to write a piano piece based on this melody. And funny how he has heard this music, that from the neighbor. The neighbor had a babysitter from a Transylvanian village, and while she was working, she was singing, and Béla Bartók could listen to the music through the walls. And then he felt in love in this music, and he tried to find others. And he decided to go to village. Maybe there are many other musicians, many other melodies who can collect. And he started to work together with his colleague Zoltán Kodály, and they divided Hungary. And they say that one of them start from the northwest and other from southeast, and they go from village to village, and the middle they will meet and exchange their experiences. And they thought that within 2 years they can finish all the collections of the Hungarian folk melodies. But surprisingly, they just opened the treasury of a huge richness of the folk music, because after a few 10,000s of melodies that they collected, there was only the first step. Many others continued their work, and today in the Academy of Sciences, we have more than 200,000 recordings, 200,000, and all are different. So it's unbelievably rich. There are no even similar in the world. And this is that type of music was only for scientists. For urban people. Of course, in villages, the people used to sing. For them, it was not that was their life. But in the cities, it was not known. For example, when I was student, I never heard when I was 21-year-old when I heard exactly the same way as Béla Bartók, very accidentally. I met this kind of music and I surprised. First of all, I didn't like it. It was so strange that I thought that, oh, it's horrible. And then listened many times, I started more and more love. And then I decided, oh, I want to play this music. And we met my colleagues and friends in an amateur dance group where the choreographer and the artistic leader decided that they don't make this kind of choreographies and folklore, not folklore, folklore programs like Moiseyev in the Soviet Union, but they try to find out the real traditional dances and music. It was in 1973, as I remember. So that's where I meet all the other colleagues of Muzsikás, and then we decided to make a group just for us, just for fun, just go home and play and enjoy the music. That's how we started this music. And that time we could get recordings from the Academy of Sciences. It was not public. We had to have friends there. Hungary is a small country. Everybody has friends everywhere. So they copied us some recordings and we were listening it and enjoying and tried to transcribe and learn. That's how we started to learn this kind of music. And the second step was, because when we have listened to this music, there was a big question that, first of all, what kind of melodies they played. They played such fantastic melodies, these kind of recordings in the musicians, in the village band, which we wanted to learn from. And the second was that we have heard very strange effects from the instruments, which we never encountered with in a classical music. So, but that was the thing that we had to travel and to see in a village how they play. So we took a train and went to those villages. Surprisingly, that's the history of Hungary and Europe in the First World War. To find Hungarian music, find a village where pure Hungarian music you could listen, you had to travel with a passport in your hand. And because it was not in Hungary, it was in the neighborhood countries. Most of the musicians who are on masters from Romania. Romania is a neighbor next country to Hungary, and a big territory, even bigger than Hungary is today, was given to Romania after the First World War. And now it belongs to Romania. They call this territory Transylvania. That is Transylvania, where actually, and that for a long time, for 1,000 years, it was a multicultural land, because Hungarians, Saxonians, that is Germans, and Romanians lived together, and all three nations, minorities, or they were really almost equal numbers, had their own language and different religion and different culture. So, and of course they interacted to each other, and that's why their Transylvanian folk music is very, very rich. And Béla Bartók collected lots of melody in that region. And when he went to collect this music, he realized that it's better if he can record, because in the first time he just transcribed the melodies, but there was so many melismas, so many variations, that he tried to somehow record, somehow to make a copy. And in that time there was no other way than the big phonograph equipment of Edison with a wax cylinder which could record 6 minutes. And to play back and to listen correctly what is in these 6 minutes, the whole band was too complicated. So Béla Bartók didn't record a whole musician band. He selected a fiddler or mostly the singers, because he said that if there are too many instruments, you cannot transcribe you cannot distinguish them in a poor recordings. So that's why most of the recordings of Béla Bartók is vocal or single musicians. But later on, when others continued their work, of course, they started to to work with more modern tape recorders, record players, and then in the last decades, of course, in the digital technique, it's even more sophisticated recordings could happen. So anyway, when we were young and we made this group Muzsikás, we went to village to learn as much as we could from the musicians. And they were very open. They loved to give their knowledge to us. They explained everything. And we came home, happily practiced a lot, and started a club where we played regularly once a week, every Tuesday evening. And there was a couple, a boy and a girl, who learned the dances, that real traditional dances. So they were the dance teachers. So people came there, 200-300 people were there, mostly students or young people. And everybody was in a big circle. We played music and they were making the basic steps and more complicated steps. And then one boy and one girl start to dance together, because that's how Hungarian dances are. They don't dance in a chain like in Balkan, but one man individual dance, like the rock and roll, So one man and one woman, one girl, one boy. And what we did, it was a tricky way how to teach them the dance faster and to make the company more close to each other. So after 1 or 2 minutes, we stopped the music, and the teacher said that, okay, everybody's in a circle, every couple in a circle. No, every girl just say goodbye to the boy and go to the next boy and start again the dance. Oh, they get shocked. They say that, okay, you came by your girlfriend, by your boyfriend, but the end, there will be a dance when you could dance what you like, but now it's the teaching process. So that's how we started to teach this kind of dances. Because this dance it's in Hungarian dance house, which is somehow a little copy of the village dance house, but it's a big difference is that people who came to a Budapest dance, they don't know how to dance. But in the village, if they go to a place to dance, everybody knows how to dance, because they from the childhood, they look the others and they learn, they grown up. Every people in this village, every little girl, little boy, with this kind of music and with this kind of dances. And this kind of villages, which we visited, there was a really like a paradise from the last century, so 500 years before, because we very, very bad buses and very complicated bad roads, we could arrive to the village, and everybody was in national costumes. Everybody. Small little kids, little boys, girls, old witches, old ladies, and old men. Yeah, everybody. And this kind of national clothes was made by them at home. So even the material, they sew the material, they make the everything. It was very elegant. The long skirts for the ladies, and it's really they look like queen. And my first experience was when I came to this village, arrived, a 21-year-old student, and wanted to listen to the music and want to find the musicians. And I came out from the bus, and there was a field where little children played football and soccer, as you say, football. And every child had a hat on his head, and they were running, and when came the ball, he take the head, poof, poof, and run again. And I was just amazed. I didn't know how it happened. And of course, there were no hotels in this village, nowhere to sleep. But I thought that maybe someone give me a shelter. And of course, it had happened. And the family who give me a food and accommodation and everything, had a daughter. She was 16, and she brought me to the dance house for the Saturday evening dance occasion. And then I could see the musicians, and they were really fantastic. So that's how I and all my colleagues somehow met this kind of traditional music, and tried to learn the techniques, tried to learn the melodies and the improvisation. One of the most important part or a characteristic of the music, that is not written music. The musicians play for a long time. I mean that at least half an hour, sometimes 1 hour without stopping. They are playing and play, let's say 5-10 minutes, one type of rhythmical melody, series of melodies, and they call it csárdas. And then they change and they call it lassú. It means that slow. And then play another polka. It's like a Polish polka. And then after it's a négyes, when two boys, two girls dancing together. So it is the series of dances. And when I see, for example, I listen to the string quartet, the number 3 string quartet, there are no movements there, which are characteristic. Of course, there are, but the movements is not like in other string quartet that the musicians stop, change the notes, and after start to a second, but continuously go from one movement to the other, and the third and the fourth. And if I say that the third quartet, which is the quartet of this week, as I know, this is one set of music, like in a village wedding party or ball. Béla Bartók, of course, when he was in villages, in daytime, he collected music from the musicians, from the good singer ladies and men. But in the evening and the weekends, they went to look at the dances. And when we listen his compositions, we could hear and recognize, like me, after playing so many years traditional music, the effect of the traditional music, even of the most modern pieces where there are no any concrete melodies from countryside, but like in the string quartets, but all the spirit of the music came from the traditional music. I have to tell that Béla Bartók has, by himself, I have tried to read in English. It's a translation. Originally, he wrote it in Hungarian. He said that why it is important if he or any composer want to create a music based on the traditional music. He said that it was the utmost consequence to us, but we had to do our collecting ourselves, and did not make the acquaintance of our melodic material in written or printed collections. The melodies of a written or printed collection are, in a sense, dead materials. One absolutely cannot penetrate into the real throbbing life of this music by means of them. In order to really feel the vitality of this music, one must, so to speak, have lived in, and this is only possible when one comes to know it through direct contact with the peasants. I don't know whether it was clear how I read, but it is very important how his mentality. And in another writing sentence from his writings that about the folk music, he said that the folk music lives untrammeled among the people themselves. If the composer allows himself to surrender to the impression of living folk music, and if he can mirror the effects of these impressions in his works, then he has recorded a piece of life. Okay, so let's listen something. It's too much speak. I show you something. Béla Bartók, no, it's a very short piece. Violin duo. He has written 44 duos, and I would like to show you the direct connections between the recordings and his compositions. This is a fiddler, a copy of these recordings from a fiddler who played alone to Béla Bartók, and it is a copy from a wax cylinder. So don't accept good quality. Music's a very poor quality, but maybe it's very important. So that's how we met this music 70 years later, this Muzsikás. And now the duo. So it's you could see the same melodies in three different versions. And in this record, I just say a secret, this recordings, the last one, the violin duo, was performed by our fiddler and Alexander Balanescu, the classical fiddler. So there's two musicians try to play the duo the way that the classical musicians play in a classical way, and the traditional musicians play in a traditional way. And that's how it could match. It's a very exciting. I would like to show you another example. Other example is that Béla Bartók, in the Romanian folk dances, there is one part of the dance called pelok. Pelok, it means that the dance in, well, I can't translate it as a Romanian word. Pelok, it means the name of a dance. And the melody was collected by him from a musicians who played on flute, the melodies. And of course, when he composed his Romanian folk dances, he tried to imitate the effects and the sound of the flute, even it's played by violin or played by piano. No, let's see the string quartet version of the Romanian folk dances of this kind of melodies, the pelok melodies. Let's see. This is the flute. Wow. So it is beautiful how Béla Bartók made the classical jewelry from this flute melody. By the way, when my colleague Peter played the flute, he played as the peasants used to, so not only blow the instrument, he was singing at the same time, woo, woo, woo. So that was the special buzzing of this kind of flute voice. Well, and now let's see another one. It's a string quartet. You know that Muzsikás is a string quartet, but not a classical, but a traditional string quartet. We have the string instruments, first violin, second first violin, that's viola, and double bass. And this was very typical in nowadays in last few hundred years after, because in every Hungarian village, I say that it's a modern way of playing folk music, because in let's say 1,000 years ago, I hope that there was no violin at all, but they played maybe bagpipes or hurdy-gurdy or flutes or something, other instruments, but the same melodies. So it's the first dance melody of the Romanian folk dances. They call bota. It means that they dance with a stick. And we met this melody 70 years later after Béla Bartók collected, and we play as we met this, as we heard from musicians. And then it was composed by Béla Bartók. Oh no, it was. I'm sorry, that was the bota. So it is how we start. Yes, okay. Yes, it will start in 1 minute. So it is the same melody, and even the harmonies are the same. So it's in that piece, that music of Béla Bartók, the folk music is almost untouched. And then for finishing, I mean that for the last melody I would like to show you is the end of the last dance of the Romanian folk dances. It's called Maruntel. It's a Romanian fast dance, and it's a very primitive music. When we have heard this, the violins plays, of course, very brilliantly the melody, but a second violin plays only 2 chords, nothing else, like a drone of a bagpipe, and the bass player give the very accurate rhythm with a pizzicato, so-called Bartók pizzicato, to have to give the effect of the string, and when it comes back, you can hear the noise of the string as it touches the wood. I will show you, and that is interesting because then we made a tricky ending of our concert with a Takács quartet. So when we played first the real dance melody as we have heard in a Romanian village in Hungary in that time, and then they played this end of the very last dance, the Maruntel of the Romanian folk dances, but they made a repeating of the last melodies when they joined, and when we played together, how a classical string quartet and the real traditional band is playing together. Let's listen that one. Fine. I think that I would like to get some questions if there are any. And
yeah, I mean, thank you so much
for
that's great. No, it was just such an emulating experience, and hearing you comparing these two styles and seeing how each influences another was just really great. One thing I was thinking, I wanted to go back and please, by the way, everyone who is here, feel free to send us questions and we'll get to them very soon. One question I had, Daniel, is you mentioned how in these villages the music each of the style of the piece usually has its purpose. It's either a dance piece when you're playing dance music, people go and dance, or if it's a lament, it could be somebody has died and the entire village is crying. And so what it seems to me is that when the music is played in the folk situation, there's always an activity associated with this music. But when the music is happening in a concert hall, you have people sitting in their fancy suits, sitting in the audience and not moving, everyone trying to be as quiet as possible. So I wanted to ask you, in your experience of being in a different situations, is this strange after being in these villages and having people react and respond to the music? Is it strange to all of a sudden being in the very silent hall when people are just very proper?
This is a good question, because the music, you are absolutely right, this music is not for stage. This is the music of the community. Musicians were servants in a village. They played what the people demanded. And in a wedding party, I'm sorry, I forgot to switch off. So it was for them, musicians tried to earn money by playing music. So they had to play what the people wanted, and not but when we play music in a club, we try to imitate the same. We try to transport from village the atmosphere to a Budapest club when we play music and everybody is dancing. Of course, we can do only if there is a course of the people to learn the dances, because it's also usually is a first part of this evening where we teach dances, and there is the free dance. And but when we had to go to the stage, I remember it was a big shock for us what to do in a stage, because we play music, let's say a lossu, it's a slow melodies, we play for 15 minutes. But in a stage, you are not allowed to play 15 minutes. After 3 minutes, people get bored. So we had to make arrangements. The arrangements is that we arranged the songs to be played in a concert hall. And what is, and that it is still a big question. Where is the freedom? What is the freedom for us to change this music? What is our aim is that we only select music. So we say that we select that and that and that melody we put together. We select that and that and that songs, so lyrics we put together, and the whole it's a 4 or 5 minutes song, like a pop song, and they can be broadcasted to the radio in this kind of programs where they don't like the music is more than 5 minutes. And we can make records, LPs, putting these songs one after another in a series. And that's how it is in a stage. It's not an easy. It's not an easy. I know that we had to work for years for that, to be accepted in stage. And then later, what we were aimed was that we tried to give back the atmosphere of the village atmosphere we experienced it to the stage. And it's not. No, we play sometimes so-called online concerts. It's a nightmare. You don't see the audience, you don't see the reactions. I don't know, like especially for folk musicians, it's very difficult, not easy. So that's how we played. We have got invitation first. In Budapest, other cities of Hungary were in university clubs, small theaters, concerts. So we have to play something. So in the first, he said that, okay, we start to explain the music. We said that, okay, that was a story, and we played, and we like a demonstration. It was like a course, like a training course, introduction to the Hungarian folk music. And it's still somehow is there. For example, even we play in for classical audience with the Trakach quartet, I used to talk to the audience. I say hello, we explain the music, we explain the experience, we explain the dancing, how was the dance in this music. So it is always interactive concerts. Folk music, Muzsikás concerts always interactive. We talk and play, and we try to make the balance, not too much talk, much more music than speech. So
well,
that's how
speaking
we.
of interaction, we have so many questions from our viewers. So I think Michelle is going to help me with reading some of them.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you, Daniel. I just want to have a sit down and have a cup of coffee for a few days and listen to all your stories. It's so wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we have many questions waiting to be answered. Jennifer asks, to what do you attribute this unbelievable diversity and richness of folk music in this region? Is it indeed more rich in music than other regions, or is it just more thoroughly documented? So what do you think, Daniel? It's
You mean that why it is so rich, the Hungarian folk music?
yeah, indeed.
First of all, it's a difficult question. First of all, we are unique in Europe. We are in the center of Europe, absolutely in the center. If you see the map, we are in the middle. No oceans, no sea around. We are in the continent, inside of the continent. Big mountains around of Hungary, which is very that was how to defend the country by the enemies, because the mountains is difficult to go across, and this is also good to defend our country of the big changes of the weather. So it's the weather is quite nice in Hungary because of these big mountains. We don't have such cold winters like in Russia, and or big changes like in Germany. So anyway, it was a huge question, big question, that who are we Hungarians with this very, very special language and this very special music? And nobody knows exactly that's how old we are living in this territory. It's sure that more than 1,000, that maybe 2,000-3,000 year old we are living in this territory. And lots of influences came to us, of course, because Hungary was occupied by Tatars, Turks, Russians, so many big occupation were, and of course when they occupy country, they always bring their language, their culture, their spirit. So it's like a melting pot in Hungary. So all kind of influences somehow influence our music. So we, for example, we can listen real traditional Hungarian folk music, real traditional Hungarian folk music, see that always looks like a Mozart song, and it is. And we are wondering how in the hell a Mozart divertimento could go to that village, and the musicians played almost from note to note, of course, with a different style. So it is a big question. Béla Bartók said or they discovered that there is an old layer of the Hungarian folk music. It's a pentatonic music, which could be dated back to 2,000 years or maybe more. So that's the basic. And there are any pentatonic in all over Europe. So we have only the one who has a pentatonic tradition. And second is what you asked, the music and dance was very important for Hungarians. It's very important. So music was a communication tool for the people. And when we collect music from a peasant farmer lady, and she sings ballads. First of all, we say that the ballads is not the way that it's a concrete melody with a concrete text. Of course not. The lyrics could be put together from many others, and the melodies also. So they can change. And then when she creates something, it's hers or it's his ballad. And when you listen the ballad presented by him or her, and listen and start to listen or interpret the lyrics and say that, oh Jesus, he speaks about his life or her life. You know that when just one example, when there's a ballad, when a mother has at home, and when the Turks are coming and want to burn their house, the husband is fighting somewhere else. She's alone with the child, and she has to escape, and she has a money box full with money and with a child, and she knows that she cannot run away with this two weight in her hands. So she thinks, what what to live at home. And she thought that, oh, God maybe give me another child. This is but the God maybe don't give me richness again. So he took the money box and left the child at home and ran away, And when she goes to the forest, she sees that the animals take care of their babies. And then she realized that it was a horrible decision. Go back, and there are no more child. And that's the lyrics of the ballad. And when she's singing, and later on, you realize what was the real story. Real story that she had a baby and she made a miscarriage and an abortion and never again could have any child. And she get rid of the pain, of the sorrow, of the guilt feeling by singing of the song. Even she doesn't know. When in a modern way, you go to a psychiatrist and they said, okay, tell me your problem. And you close your eyes and tell your problem. It's not possible in village. They will never tell their problem, but they will sing their problem.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite a story.
A really sad and beautiful story. And we don't seem to express those things the same way nowadays, I suppose, as there were. And that kind of leads me to the next question. We've got kind of a couple similar questions, so I think you'll be able to answer them kind of together. Following up on this, what is the musical situation in rural Hungary or Romania today? Does this music still live there? If not, how does your band preserve this music and keep it evolving? And somebody else also, Sonia, also asked, is Muzsikás still touring? And so are you still performing and keeping this music alive?
First of all, we have to say that this kind of untouched richness of tradition is over. There are still musicians who play the melodies. There are still villages where there is a band. But as I told you, the musicians are the servants of the community, and they play what their community demands. And today, they change the national costume. They try to be modern. They use their smartphone, and they could listen all over the world. And the musician had to learn the most fashionable schlagers, the songs of the today, and they play in the wedding party. And you go there, and even maybe one or two old men, women have the national costumes, but all others looks modern. It's really, really sad to see. And especially because I witnessed a traditional wedding party where I was the only one, me and my wife, we were the only one who were not from that village. And everything was so traditionally organized and so beautifully. It was a real happening of the village. We were the guests of the bride, and they made a tent in the yard of the house of the bride, and make fantastic food for 1 week. And everybody who helped for the wedding party, who went there and was this was a pre-party before the wedding party. And then when the party started, it was from Saturday afternoon till Monday morning, eating, drinking, dancing, amusing, continuous feast. People could go home to feed the animals and come back and continue. Of course, for the musician, it's a very hard task. Sometimes they had to play 40 hours without stopping, 30, 40 hours. And after they sleep for 2 days. But you know that few wedding parties not all year were ready. There was a period when but there are too many agriculture work, they can't make wedding parties. Or let's say if a musician went for 10 wedding parties, it was the income for a year, and it was enough for him. So even the poorest village could make their musicians live just on music. They were not rich people of the musicians, but they didn't have to do anything else, only play music. And you know, when I met this kind of old fiddlers or musicians, say that, oh, you know, Daniel, I am so proud that every day I pray to God and thanks that he give this gift, the knowledge of the music, because, you know, I could live all my life to doing what I love to do. And it is so good to listen that. And that's, and what else that when a musician, a fiddler, and he was a brilliant fiddler, the gypsy man, illiterate gypsy man, but a fantastic fiddler. When he died, it was in the 70s, he died, the 8th richest farmer of the village, the most respected 8th man, took his coffin in the hand and brought to the cemetery. That is the biggest honor to somebody. So they not coach by their hand in the shoulders. The 8th richest. So he give the you know that in a society where the caste system, of course, in every traditional system, like who is the most respected, the priest, and who is the most less respected is the beggar. You know, and in that case, a gypsy musician has got the biggest respect that could ever anybody can have.
Wow.
It's like the 25 gunshot from the American president to a guest or something like that. I don't know how much, which is the most respected gunshot. Yes. Boo. Yes.
And can you describe a little bit the technical differences between how you play in a classical style and how you play? Because we can hear the difference when we listen to the examples you play, but then also when Bartók was using this music to create his own string quartets, he treats the dynamics perhaps in a little bit different way. There's a much greater range and maybe accents are bigger or more exaggerated. Can you just talk about these differences between the classical and
yes.
and folk music?
Yes, okay. I tell you the big difference. In a classical music, one demand is that you play exactly which is written in the notes. You know, if you don't play, it's a mistake. There's not such a mistake in the village music because he plays what he wants to play. It's nobody controls, especially it's not even control. He has not, he always plays differently if he plays the music in second time. Even under Bertolt, he doesn't know it, he doesn't realize. So we went to a village fiddler, and with a record player, tape recorder in the 70s, and say that, okay, please play us just that one melody. And he played beautiful. He said that, okay, thank you very much. Oh, Jesus, that something had happened. It was not true. This was a trick. We said, Jesus, had happened something horrible technical problem. It seems that we couldn't record. Please, play exactly the same way you played it last time. Okay, yes, I will do that. And he played. And he made the second trick. Oh, again. And three times he played. And then we went home and listened to the big differences. Even he wanted, or request was to play the same way. He is not able to play in the same way 3 times. So that is the way of the fiddler. The fiddler also that I couldn't demonstrate because I'm not a fiddler, but you are. So you know that in a modern way of fiddling, you keep the instrument by your shoulder and by your hand. You can let your hand, and this instrument is there, you know. It's in the village music is not the way. There are no this kind of pillow down. So they put the instrument to the shoulder, you know, and put the head, or how can it show you? The instrument in your palm. So you not play this way, but you play that way. You know, it's can you see it this way? And that makes a very, very different of melismas. Yeah, This is exactly. The viola player, viola player doesn't play this way, but up and down, because it's much easy, because first of all, it will when you go down, it's easier to give a stronger effect than up. So then we make this kind of very the rhythmical accompaniment, and the bass player has to keep the beat. If he is out of tune, nobody can listen. Even the fiddler, who has a very sharp ear, doesn't care if the bass player is out of tune. Sometimes because they made the strings at home, by gut. It's just not a precise, beautiful string that you can give it this kind of noises, but have to be very, very accurate rhythmically. If rhythmically something was wrong, it's a nightmare. And the responsible for the band, it was always the fiddler. When we asked the old people, when we visited the village, yes, do you remember who was the fiddler who was the band when you had the wedding party? Yes. It was Árus Pista. That was the name of the fiddler. Yeah, but alone with the band. And so they don't say the band, they say only the name of the fiddler. It was the fiddler, because the fiddler who is responsible for all the others. If he makes some mistake, the fiddler, they are not inviting him next time. But if he is great and good, even wedding parties are postponed if he has no time to come.
Wow.
Village Music Society, musician society. And one thing which we don't do, but it was in a village, when there were 4 members of the band, the musician divided the money 5 equal part, and the fiddler get 2. And I get 1 and 1 and 1. No, it's not in Muzsikás. Muzsikás is equal. But in that time, because the big responsibility had to let's say that he was invited, and not the viola player, and not the bass player, and not the cymbalum player, and not the flute player. So that was it.
He gets the manager's fee too. So can you tell us, when we talked before, you mentioned having attended for the first time, one of these Saturday night dance parties. Can you tell us about, to describe that type of scene?
Yes.
Paint the picture of what one of these.
Yes. It was in a village sake when I said that when I went when I was 21 and I arrived in this village with blue jeans and long hair, as it was the youngster in that time, and everybody was in national costume. So it was very clear that I'm not from that village. It was a village of quite a big village with 6,000 or 7,000 people, which is a very big village comparing to the others. And I saw these children playing football, and I thought that I had to find somewhere where to sleep, where to make it's a long trip was from Budapest to be there, and no hotel, of course. So I went to the pub. I thought that in the pub I could talk to people and maybe ask that is there anybody who could give a shelter for a poor Budapest student. And one of the footballists, little child, maybe he was 7, 8, 9 year old, he looked at me and said, "Hey man, where are you from?" I said, "That's from Budapest." "Oh, from Hungary. Okay, there, where do you stay?" I said, "That I don't know, I don't have anywhere to stay." And he said nothing, just run away, run very fast. And I just was walking to the pub, and before I just entered to the pub, I see that the child is coming and waving, hey man, my mother told that just come to us, you can stay with us, So I went to that house, and immediately they took me as their child. So I was like a stepson of the family. That was a beautiful girl. Amazingly beautiful girl, a 16-year-old, And she took me as the brother. And she said that, okay, to the Saturday evening, we go to the Tanzhaus, to the dance occasion. In that village, the young boys and girls, everybody who was big enough, in the girls above 14, the boys above 15, till that they marry, so unmarried, they should be unmarried, they were invited to the Tanzhaus, a special house where the musicians played all night. And in that house, only those who were the village young people were invited, and nobody else could, especially no adults, no married man or woman were not allowed to be there anymore. They married quite young. I think all the girls married under 20 and all the boys married under 23 or 24. So it is, they were young when they had their family. So I went to that house. It was a typical peasant house, a bigger one, quite big one. It was owned by a widow, so she offered this house for the young people of the village. And about, let's say, 50, 60, 70, about 50 young people, maybe a little bit more, could go there. So in this kind of house, there was 3 in these villages, and every part of the village, the east part, north part, south part, had their own Tanzhaus. So it was dark when we went there. We went in a veranda inside the house, and the first room they called Pitar. I even didn't know it's a word that I never met in Hungarian language before. The Pitar, there was no light at all, no light, and only benches, small benches at the wall, and I didn't know why. I didn't understand. Later, I understood why it was that way. So, and there were 2 rooms, one at the left and the right. In the right room, there was a big table and chairs around, and that was the place where boys, usually boys, mostly boys, but some girls also could go sit down and drink pálinka. Pálinka is a spirit, at least 50 degrees centigrade of alcohol, so stronger than the whiskey, and made of plum. And they were drinking. You know, it's Europe. It's not a country where you are not allowed to drink alcohol under 21. It is a traditional. I'm so sorry to say it. Don't try it. It's not allowed in America, but in Transylvania, it was very normal, and it was very important. Why? That was the time, and they were singing, drinking and singing. And that was the place where everybody could make the measure how much he can drink. And they were always, you should be above of the alcohol and not the alcohol above you. Because if you get drunken, everybody laughed at you, and nobody liked to be ridiculous. So that was it. And I will say that it's a good place. I do have friends of the same age, and they are 70, and still today they don't know the measure. They don't know when to stop to drink. In that place, young people learn how to stop. And the other room was practically for the dance. The musicians stand in the corner. There were only 3 musicians, one bass player, or it's like a child, it's a bass player, a viola player, and of course the fiddler. And they played, and the room, they tried to be as much as in the corner as they could to occupy the less room from the room, because there were the dancing. And of course, if there was, let's say, 30 couples or 20, 30 couples, of course, there was no room for them, only for one couple. I mean that one boy and girl had a chance to dance. So the musicians start to play, and they play for 1 hour. And the boy asks the girl to dance, and for 1 hour, you dance with the same girl. And between break to break, so 1 hour. So, but because there are no place to run, you stand in a queue. So everybody stood in a queue, you know, and the first one, they are, let's say, 2 or 3 square meters. That was the place just in front of the musicians where they could dance. So when they danced a little, let's say half a minute, and they danced away, come the next one, and come the next one. While you were waiting in the queue, you were holding the girl very tight, very strongly. So it is a good thing, you know, that there is a girl you love, you like, and for there you are holding her for an hour. This is a tradition, and it really very closely. They were just moving a little bit for the rhythm of the music, and they were dancing. And then when that dance cycle was over, that was 1 hour was they had to play for 1 hour, because practically everybody danced much less than 1 hour, but all together was 1 hour. And there was a break. In the break, the boy could say who liked the girl. Oh, you know, Mary, do you want to go with me to the pita? Just a little talking. And the girl went, of course, there was dark. And there was the benches, they would call each other and talking. So that was a place where love started. And all the ladies of the village couldn't see, because it was secretly only for the young people. And there was one, of course, the girl was not obliged to go. She, if she doesn't like the boy, she was not, the boy couldn't force her to go there. It was not allowed to force a girl. The girl went if she wanted, not. And if you wanted to express your feeling that maybe your love to a girl, it was easy. You asked one night to dance twice. Everybody knew that you are interested in this girl. But if the girl didn't interested you, you just could give up without being ridiculous. You know, it's a big thing. I remember of my time. You know, I didn't know how to go to a girl not to be ridiculous. I looked at the mirror, and I see that how Jean-Paul Belmondo, the big star, is doing. You know, but in the practice, when I was there, I failed. You know, but in this village, nobody, you cannot, because I was afraid to be ridiculous. What to say? You don't know that. You are only 16, 17-year-old. You know that you are beginner of the love. So you don't know. So it is very interesting. And one was important. The rule was, there was a regulation. What was allowed, what was not allowed. Of course, one thing was very big crime. I mean that very unpolite. First of all, if a boy asks a girl to dance and the girl say that, no, I don't dance with you, because maybe for the boy was from a poorer family. You know, it was a big hurting, and the community didn't let it. Or a boy was very violent to a girl to go to the pitar. It also was not allowed. And what it happened, it was very, very nice. They were the leaders of this community. I mean, the boys, usually the eldest boy, 2, 3, 4 of the eldest boy who were above 20, who they were the responsibility to keep the rules. Their responsibility were to hire the house from the old lady and hire the musicians for 1 year. They collect the money from the others, and they paid the musicians for a year. So they were the most respected persons of this dances, of this event. And when they knew and they get sure that somebody made a crime against the rules, they punished him or her. The punishment was very painful. Of course, they didn't. That was that. The next, when the musicians start to play for the next series of music, one of these boy who was Kezes, who was the guard, you know, went to the fiddler and stopped his hand. Stop! Don't play. Everybody said, what is going to happen? What is that? Play the Rákóczi March. Rákóczi March is a march. This is a march. And they start to play this Rákóczi March. Usually is the end of the dance. You know that of all wedding party, when the musician play the Rákóczi March, it means that it's finished. That's the very last song. Look at what could happen. And these boys of the respecting, their Kezes boys, went to the guilty and very smoothly, very not violently, very mildly, they pushed him out from the dance through the yard to the gate, and you go home. You know, and it was such a big shame. Such a big shame that nobody risked to get this kind of shame. But that was the rule. So that was the Tanzhaus.
Great story. This is wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. I think we're well past the time, but thank you everyone for sticking with this wonderful guest of ours here. Just before we go quickly, what kind of percussion instrument do you play? I read.
The percussion instrument is, it was in the Toronto music, in this music. Yeah, it's called gardon. It's nowhere else in the world. Gardon is a special instrument with strings. All strings there are 4 strings. 3 is very thick and 1 is very thin. All is tuned to D, and there is a stick. It's like a cello, like a big guitar. And you beat the strings like a drum, and you pickle the 4 strings, and it comes back. Pizzicato, it's a Bartók pizzicato. Butza, 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 butza. You give this kind of different rhythms. You can play with it. It's gardon, called gardon. There's only one place in the Eastern Carpathian Mountains. There's a region called Gimes. The musicians play this till today. If you go, it's an untouched place. If there is some places where you can listen only this music. Very, very far. If I travel from Budapest, it takes much more to travel there than to travel, let's say, to Munich by car. In Munich, you are there in 6 hours, you are there in 12 hours. So, and it's still Hungarians. So you know that it's, Hungary, Europe is small. I mean that small countries are everywhere. And if there is a big country like France, there are minorities everywhere. So anyway, if you travel 12 hours and you are still Hungarian speaking, there are 2 reasons. One is that the country is very big. Second is the roads are very bad. It takes a long time to drive there. And now it's the second, both. It's far and the roads are not too good.
Yeah, that will do. Okay. Russ?
And one final question, Larry is asking, what type of influence does folk music have on the local liturgical music? So is there any kind of crossover between the religious music and the folk music?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. That
is there an influence between the folk music, let's say, that you play that has to do with dancing or at weddings,
yes,
and the music in the church, like local, church community?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean the religious music.
Yeah.
Well, not too much. Not too much. The religion songs, of course, there was a different kind of genre, or where the people used to sing in a church, and there were some prayers which was not canonized by the church. You know that there are in a Reformed church or in the Catholic church, there are the Bible and there are a songbook. And you can sing only from the songbook. But in some very religious Catholic area, there are prayers which are not canonized, we call apocryph prayers. It means that the people sing and they think that they are praying to God, but they are not allowed to sing in the church. So the church music is a religious music is different. In one is in Moldavia. Moldavia is there are Hungarians live out of the Carpathian Mountains who never belonged to Hungary. The Csangos, they call Csangos. They are very, very Catholic people, and they have till when they were there, the mass should be performed in Latin language. They were singing the Gregorian Mass, and the melismas and the ornaments of the Catholic of this kind of Gregorian Mass is much different from the others, because they put somehow their folk traditions into these kind of songs, but only through the melismas. I mean that they don't sing only pa pa but oh, you know, that lots of other melismas. But it's even the word for singing in Hungarian. There are two words for that: énekel and dalol. Énekel, it means that he's singing in a church. Dalol, he's singing in a wedding party. So the verb, two verbs. Énekelni, dalolni, and when of course in an urban dictionary it's a synonym, so it's all the same. But if you go to a village and ask a lady, sing something in that énekeljen valamit, and they start to sing in a religious song because you ask her to sing a religious song. So it's another word for that. It's the other way.
Well, that was such a crazy ride. Thank you so much. We just can't be more appreciative and more thankful for you. And you know, I personally have been last week been listening to a lot of Muzsikás recordings. So for everyone who is at home and can't travel right now, hopefully at some point we are going to get back to normal and have more live music. But there's wonderful recordings by the Muzsikás, and you can find them on YouTube or streaming services or buy a CD. So thank you so much for joining us, and we just can't thank you enough for that wonderful experience you're giving us.
Okay, thank you, and a good day. It's late evening in Hungary, but have a nice day today in America.
Good evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye now. Bye bye.
Bye.